Episode 8, Su-zakana, written by Scott Nimefro, Brian Fuller and Steve Lightfoot, directed by Vincenzo Natali. Welcome to Fate and Circumstance, a Hannibal fan podcast. I am your host, Felix Fanfaron Fern, and these are my co-hosts.
Hello, I'm Melisa Suzan, and I am a fan of that makes part of the fan podcast.
And I'm Shaira Bambi, and I'm a fan, just not a fan of Hannibal. No, actually, no, I'm a fan
Neither
of
am
Hannibal.
I.
What am I saying? I'm a fan of Hannibal.
You're on your
not a
own, babe.
fan.
Well, conflict already. Okay.
I'm not on my own.
You're both on your own. You're both on your own.
I'm a neutral, unbiased bystander.
Oh, are you?
Right.
Are you?
Yep.
Yeah, what's your profile photo then?
It's artwork because I support artists. It's not Hannibal.
Okay.
You can't prove that. So,
Right.
speaking of artists, that was a very smooth segue.
Yep.
Starting out with our shout-outs this week. Doing two Japanese fanables because there are a lot of them. A few Korean fanables and some Chinese fanables as well, but Hannibal just seems massive in Japan, which is super fun. It's great, and they're both going to Tokyo Comic Con next year, so that'll be nice. Yeah. Humanity never goes there. Yeah, Maz is there all the fucking time, but that'll be really nice for them at last.
Yeah. Whoop, whoop.
So the first shout out is for Iroha, or Nemui223, who does wonderful, wonderful Hannibal artwork. There is a particular picture that I am a very big fan of that makes me laugh every time I see it, which is the artwork of Hannibal and Will as the two Grecian statues, with Will just pushing Hannibal in the face.
It's so good. It's like, stop hugging me.
It's one of the most character canon pictures I've ever seen. It always makes me laugh.
It's so good. So good.
But their artwork is super pretty and super lovely. There's a lot of domestic artwork, which is really sweet, a lot of funny artwork, as well as comic panels and stuff. And then the second artist is Tori Oekaki, who does some of the most wonderful Hannibal as a cat artwork, which I know Cat Hannibal is a really popular thing amongst artists for some reason. But I am not complaining because I love Hannibal as a cat.
It's fantastic. And I like the Happy Halloween.
They did a whole series of Hannibal as a little demon Halloween pictures over Halloween this year, and every single one is really, really cute.
That's fantastic.
They're so sweet. And they did that little really simplistic safety zone picture recently with Will with his head on Hannibal's lap on the chaise on. It's just really cute.
That's so cute.
It's so soft.
Safety zone.
So they are our two lovely artists this week, which then brings me on to my traditional question of how did you find the episode?
Fantastic. I love Peter.
Very
Two different reactions.
Yeah.
So I found it fantastic. Melissa found it weird.
No, it's still weird in a good way, yeah.
Yeah.
It is a super weird episode, but it's also a super good episode. It is unsurprisingly, I think, I wouldn't say people's favourite episode, but it's a standout episode from the series that a lot of people remember, because there's a lot of it that's quotable, and just kind of notorious.
So many quotable things. I too want to throw people into horses.
Please don't.
Yeah, I don't have the same desire. I can't say I feel that. So, cool.
Shira's always got her own weird agenda.
I always have a weird agenda. Come on, I have to be the weird agenda one. I have to reflect Hannibal in some manner. That's why I hate him so much. But I also don't hate him.
That makes sense. Why Will hates him, because he sees himself in him.
Oh.
Literally. Anyway.
Mm.
So, I'll do my usual little thing of talking about the name of the episode. So, this episode is called Su-zakana, which I always misspell as Su-zakana. It's not Su-zakana, it's Su-zakana, which is a palate cleanser in kaiseki. There's usually vegetables in vinegar, sometimes seafood, but it's normally, little veggies to cleanse your palate before the next dish.
I love
Sounds
veggies.
really good, and I kind of want that right now.
I want food.
Yeah, I
Food.
think because I had some like heavy, deep fried food, I'm like, I now want a palate cleanser in the
I
form
had a
of
small snack
good
before the podcast. What is it? Weird.
People are well fed. That makes me happy.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, before we go on to the meal, we'll do our first talking point first, as it all kind of coincides-ish. So,
Mhm.
this episode opens with Will and Jack having a thinly veiled discussion about how to hunt a predator, in this case trout, but clearly alluding to Hannibal. However, then at Hannibal's dinner table, Will's snide comments are carefully rejected by Jack, who seems to be trying to keep the peace. And Jack also later says that Will is pointed in the wrong direction, re Hannibal being a killer. So, what do you think is going on here? Do you think that Jack still harbours suspicions about Hannibal, or is this all Will?
No, I think Jack has suspicion about Hannibal, and I think he's tried. Also, since Will has been right in the past and he's now proven not guilty, I think he's also trying to do good by Will as well at the same time. So he's conflicted. I
Yeah.
feel like.
Yeah, I think he wouldn't have engaged in the conversation and been giving the sort of like metaphorical discourse back if he didn't think the same way. I think with Jack in his position, he kind of needs to keep all avenues open, and I think after everything that happened, not only to sort of make it up to Will, like Shaira said, but also just in general the fact that they now know for sure that they can trust Will and that he's not really ever been wrong. I think he'd be silly to sort of cut off this avenue entirely. And I think with people like detectives and all of those things and that kind of same genre of people, I think they will have every kind of avenue. I mean, mainly because they have to. If they're given any kind of evidence, they kind of have to consider it and keep it open to make everything fair. But like, they keep every single avenue open until there's a reason to close it. And I think Jack is smart enough to know that there hasn't been any definitive reason to close off the fact that Hannibal should be suspected, or at least like considered in everything that's going on. So I think he will say maybe like one thing because he doesn't want to believe it. He's got a friendship and everything that we've said before. But I think if he wasn't thinking the same way and at least acknowledging or understanding what Will's saying in that moment, I don't think he would have engaged in that conversation in the way that he did.
Yeah, even after catching Dr. Jordan in the act, quote unquote, in the act, because I don't think even he's like it's for him, like maybe in the moment it's like, okay, Dr. Children's a threat, but like after going away and thinking about it, it's just such a I forgot what the saying is. It's such a closed act. It feels too easy, especially for someone like the Chesapeake Ripper to have just made such a stupid mistake after all these years.
I think that makes sense.
It's like, oh, he's made a mistake, even though he's been meticulously avoiding us all this time. Like,
Yeah.
it feels way too coincidental. At least I as a person, if I was part of the FBI, think that.
I think that makes sense. I think the only thing I'll add to this is whenever they do have a conversation in this episode about Hannibal or alluding to Hannibal, apart from the one scene at the beginning where it's just Jack and Will, where they're being veiled but also kind of transparent. The other scenes, Hannibal is always there.
That's true.
So I think it's fair to assume that Jack might still have suspicions, given that he's not going to say that in front of him, is he?
No.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And Will just like an idiot going, "Oh, I suspect you still."
Is he though? Anyway,
Mm.
you know, Will. Don't assume Will is an idiot. You know
Yeah,
that Will is
true.
not an idiot. So keep that in mind, how clever Will is.
Yeah, that's true.
So let's talk about the food.
Yay!
This is a weird looking dish. So the dish served at the start of the episode between Hannibal, Jack, and Will is described by Hannibal as, here comes Felix's bad French, treat salmonet au bleu, which basically is blue trout. With vegetables and broth served with a hollandaise sauce on the side. He also pours a consommé over the fish. I'm always tickled by Will's delivery of "it's delicious" with this dish because he looks so fucking angry about it when he says it. I will make sure that you two get to see at some point the bloopers for season 2, because there's a fantastic blooper where he gets asked to deliver that line again but mean it, which is especially funny because in the blooper he actually sounds more genuine than he does in the episode.
Lol.
That's funny.
It's so funny. So, I'm now going to read you just a massive chunk of text from Janice Poon's blog, because I can't reword it to sound better than how she's written it.
Yeah.
This is just a whole chunk of text about some of the preparation of the fish, because I found it really interesting, and I thought other people might as well.
Ooh, yes.
So, she writes, treat au bleu is one of those dishes that Epicureans love. First of all, it's French, really, really French. No one, not even the Chinese, would go to this kind of trouble for dinner. You start with live trout, then you knock it on the head or kill it with as little fuss as possible so the trout doesn't know it's in trouble. The Chinese way is to pierce its brain by running a chopstick through its mouth. Japanese use a technique called kaimin katsugyo, where a thin wire is inserted at a specific pressure point, like acupuncture, and the fish is immediately rendered brain dead, but its spinal nervous system is still functioning, so it's in a kind of coma until you gut it. Which is horrific. You don't want the fish to struggle for a couple of reasons. First is that the flesh will be sweeter and more tender if the fish is relaxed when it dies. The second reason is that you don't want to manhandle the fish and accidentally scrape off any of the protective slime that coats the living fish. It's the slime that turns blue, or a steely blue-grey, and gives the dish its visual appeal. Then she put in brackets, did I say appeal? No, not really. So that's why it's that weird blue colour.
I see. That's very interesting.
It's really cool. It's quite morbid, but it's
very
very
morbid.
cool. Yeah.
I'd probably try it, but I know I don't like that much fish. That I probably would dislike it if it's too fishy.
I'm kind of mid on fish.
Yeah.
I really like fish.
I wish I did, because it's one of the healthiest proteins.
It is one of the healthiest proteins. I can't get past it.
It's very popular to eat fish in sort of Turkish cultures as well as Cypriot. A lot of people will eat it around the Eid time as well, specifically. When we was younger and it was Eid, we'd go out to a fish restaurant quite literally on the coast of North Cyprus.
Nice.
And we'd literally be just sat in this really nice outside area in summer, and we're quite literally sat on top of rocks. A lot of restaurants are like that, and eating fish and stuff. Yeah, very big. Especially whole fish as well was very common to see. So seeing these kind of photos, I thought would be would be a little bit, not like a shock, but just a bit oh yeah, that is different. I mean, the tails coming out of the mouths is obviously a bit different, but the whole thing of seeing a fish whole on a plate or in any kind of way, I've just realised that I'm actually, I'm not too bothered about it, because I realise how much I see it.
100%. I am similar. We have whole fishes and big massive fish as well, because we have very much fish eating ethnicity. Bengalis are. Just to note, I have just become the complete opposite. My whole family loves fish. I hate it.
Yeah.
Whereas I am the generic British one, so I'm very used to the kind of English thing of we don't see whole fish that much unless it's a fancy thing. You don't see fish eyes or other parts of the fish being used very much, which is very sad. But we're like that with a lot of protein in the UK. We're quite wasteful with protein, which is quite sad. Mentioning the tail in the mouth thing, Janice Poon mentioned in her blog that normally it's presented in a horseshoe shape, so it's just bent with the head turned towards the tail. But Janice Poon did the tail in the mouth thing to be more Hannibal-esque.
Amazing.
Yeah. She also pre-gutted all of the fish and then stuffed the guts back in so that Maz could do the gutting scene.
Oh,
So
that's
he's
cool.
only
lovely.
so he's only partly preparing it so that he doesn't have to gut the whole fish, which is smart.
Very smart.
Yeah, because as always, they get him to do as much actual real cooking on camera as possible, which is very cool.
That is very cool. I know how to gut fish.
So do I.
I've never done it, but I watch a lot of weird fish preparing videos. I don't know why, so I've seen it hundreds of times.
Amazing.
I did I had like a big whole salmon, like like massive salmon. Salmon's are fucking ginormous. I had like so I used to work in Waitrose and I was trained on like the meat and fish counter as well as the other deli counter. The deli counter was kind of boring because all I'd do was eat cheese and then tell people about it. But on the meat and fish counter, it was fun, to be fair. On the meat and fish counter is where I learned a lot, specifically to do with like cooking, which is why I really liked it. And we would get these big orders of salmon, and sometimes it would be like people have actually ordered them for preparing themselves for parties, and they pay like well over 100 quid for this massive fucking salmon. It's crazy. But then other times we would order it in so that we would fillet it and then have the fillets that we would sell fresh on the counter. So I had to quite a few times have these massive, huge salmons, like almost as tall as me sometimes, and then just gut because I would practice on small fish and I knew how to do small fish. I did like loads of small fish every day, like trouts and what are the other ones called? Mackerels. I did mackerels every flipping day.
That's the fish I do like.
Right, yeah. And then every so often we'd have the massive salmon. And I'd have to go and do that, and I'd be so nervous because it's huge and they're expensive. And if I mess that up, then Waitrose is going to be like, well, you're going to cost us another salmon. And I'll be like, I'm sorry. But I successfully did it very well, and I got a good few fillets out of it, and I was very proud of it. And
hell yeah.
I've only done it once or twice since. I will say that it was relatively okay, and it was recently that I did it, but I was proud of myself. I hadn't touched a fish like that in a long time since, and that was probably like 5-6 years ago. So, yeah.
That's very cool. I think a lot of people could probably say they've not gutted a fish.
Yeah, I know how to gut fish because I'm South Asian, and I even if I don't like a certain food, I cook it for my family. I will have to cook things for my family, so I pretty know how to cook it. But yeah, weirdly, when you were talking about the fish, I'm feeling hungry for fish, even though I don't like fish. I say I hate fish, but there is lots of fish that I like. I think there's just sometimes my brain goes, no, don't want it.
It's also about the way that it's prepared as well, like how you'll want it. It's like being hungry for something you've never had before. Like you'll see food in like videos and books or something, and you'll be like, "Oh my god, I'm hungry for that. I want that," but like you've never had it before, so it's very understandable.
Like I like restaurant fish and like bass cooked and stuff like that, like and seasoned like lightly with like salt and pepper. But I just don't like fish curry.
That's very valid.
I like fish curry.
So, speaking of fish, there is a particular line in this episode that people talk about a lot, primarily because I was going to say, in my opinion, no, in many people's opinions, it's such a stupid line, which is Hannibal saying, "I find the trout to be a very Nietzschean dish." Nietzschean fish, rather, not dish. That's the one. So it's just one of the most absurd things that man ever says, which is saying a lot considering the things he says. So I considered delving into that line, but then I decided against it. One, because it would take me too long to make head or tails of it, and two, I honestly think it's just better left alone for people to explore if they are so inclined to such masochism, because I'm not looking into Nietzsche for the sake of this one fucking line. However,
oh dear.
I mentioned this on Twitter, making fun of that line, and a certain someone got very annoyed at me. And then later on, I happened to share a wonderful piece of Japanese artwork of someone being tortured, because those are the kinds of things that I share on Twitter. And this person,
Relative,
yeah, this person, Vitamin Pops, came along and said, "I will draw Hannibal in this pose if you say one single serious line about that line." So, I'm going to attempt to, off the top of my head, give a vague, non-Nietzschean analysis of the trout to be a Nietzschean fish line. They're specifically talking... No, they're not. I'm going to start that again. Fuck!
It's alright, you got it.
No, this is terrible. Right. The trout that they're eating is wild-caught trout. Normally, they'd be discussing, like, farmed trout. So when Hannibal is talking about the flavour of the trout, which he's talking about during this scene, there's like, no, I can't do this seriously. I can't do it. I have to... No, different angle. Right.
Okay.
I fucking hate this. Right. Hannibal is talking about the flavour of the fish and how it's flavoured, and some of it is to do with it being wild as opposed to farmed trout. The main thing is, everything that they're talking about at this dinner scene, even if you take Will's little snide remarks to the side, is the entire thing is, as always, once again, one long cannibal joke. Because Will thinks that he's getting remarks in against Hannibal that Jack is then countering, but the whole time Hannibal is talking about their shared experiences, and he's also talking about the experience of the trout making it tastier. So what Hannibal is actually saying is that their shared trauma with the situation with Chilton is giving them flavour. So even when he's trying to be nice and be like the innocent party, he's essentially being all teehee, I'm kind of fattening you up and making you tastier through these shared horrible experiences we're having because I know what's really happening. And
amazing. This bitch.
This bitch. And that's my one serious line about the trout line.
That's amazing.
It's all an allusion to them being the tasty food, not the actual trout. Which is made extra fun by the fact that Will has caught it, being that Will is always somehow involved, whether he wants to be or not.
Always.
Beautiful delivery, sir. Are you getting a drawing now?
I better get that fucking drawing. Yeah. I'm going to clip this part and post it on Twitter to demand that piece of artwork of Hannibal being tortured.
My drawing.
Going on to our second talking point. Okay, so this talking point is incredibly silly, but kind of like the Nietzschean fish thing. It's something people talk about a lot, so I wanted to bring it up for you two to be able to talk about it, because it's kind of a shared fannibal experience of silly things that happen in the show. So
there's a lot of silly things that happen in this show.
Exactly.
Oh my god. So a lot of people discuss this episode in terms of whether or not Hannibal likes or cares for animals. So I would love to know your thoughts. So, psychopaths are often depicted as lacking the empathy to care for animals. In fact, cruelty towards animals is often considered a sign of potential psychopathy, but we know there's nuance in that. We've seen Hannibal looked after Will's dogs and fed them sausage, which we can assume was probably human meat, so it's hard to say if that was caring or one of Hannibal's cruel jokes. In this episode, he says, "I agree with the pagans, the horse is divine, all beasts of burden are sacred animals." He's almost reverent as he strokes the neck of the dead horse. We also catch a glimpse of him stroking a sheep in the barn, which is an infamous scene. In the script, it actually says he's feeding a handful of meal to a pig and smiling. Because I wasn't sure, I always assumed that the sheep thing was not scripted, it was just a Mads Mikkelsen thing, but no, he is meant to be doing something nice with an animal in that scene. So, what do you think?
I think he loves animals because he got upset with the birdies being harmed.
The birds being harmed?
The birdies being harmed. Well, at least I remember being back when it was the lawmaker who took out the
yes,
forest,
that's true. He cares about. We know he cares about nature. That's true.
He cares about nature.
Endangered animals.
Nature is animals. You know, maybe he does care about the animals, and I think he's one to think people are lower than himself and animals. And animals, unfortunately, are seen as food. But yeah, it doesn't mean. I always thought So, in my opinion, animals have always been on par with us. It's just we need sustenance, and it's not out of necessity. We kind of eat animals. That doesn't give us any power over them or any kind of like it gives us any weight over them. I still just think it's explaining it badly, but yeah. And I think that's how Hannibal would see it as well. At least I hope he sees it. But yeah.
I'm not too sure. I think that it is still something that for certain animals he probably sees as below him, just because he has this sort of god complex about himself. I think there is maybe an appreciation for nature and how it works, and the fact that it is its own sort of entity separate from human and things that are man-made and everything else within that realm. I think he has an appreciation for nature and I guess animals and how they are. Whether I think he necessarily likes or dislikes them, I think he maybe doesn't necessarily have too much of an opinion. I don't know if I've seen enough to sort of figure out if he feels strongly one way or the other, if that makes any sense. I feel like unless it's something that really would be involved deeply within his life, I think he kind of is just maybe like neither here nor there. I think he has his passions and I think he has things that he cares about. I think animals particularly, maybe not necessarily something that's in his focus, but I think he definitely appreciates, especially the way that he was speaking about the horse, the language that he was using. I think he definitely has an appreciation for other things and nature, and rightfully so. Nature is an incredible thing, considering that it's just something that, again, naturally occurs. And I think he has that appreciation in terms of being perceiving himself as like an intellect and someone that, you know, philosophical and thinking and just thinking about these kind of things. But yeah, I think in terms of like really caring about animals, maybe in the way that Will does with his dogs, I don't know if I would say that. But then I wouldn't necessarily say that he absolutely despises animals or doesn't give a shit at all. I think he's maybe sort of in the middle ground of like, it's not really anything that he's too bothered with.
I think that makes sense. I constantly go back and forth on it. Because as silly as it is, I think the sheep petting scene really sets it off for me, makes me confused. Because, like, I think naturally my inclination would be that he doesn't dislike animals, he doesn't wish any sort of harm against animals, but he doesn't particularly care about them either.
Yeah.
The sheep kind of makes me question that a little bit, just like, maybe he kind of does like animals a little bit. Maybe there's a little part of him that's just like, oh, a sheep.
But him petting the sheep could be his, could also be a metaphor in the way that he treats certain people. It's like, oh, just because he's fucking Alana doesn't mean that he actually, like, cares about her in that way, in the way that he's flipping cosplaying your average human. Like, he's a psychopath. He can pretend to be whoever he wants. He's putting on a person suit and this person suit likes to pet sheep.
Well,
I think it's the same thing.
That's one interesting thing about that scene, though, is no one's watching him.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't know that Clark Ingram is in the horse, which I think is one of my favourite things about that scene, is it's just, for a weird little second, Hannibal just being Hannibal, just in a really weird way. But I like the point you make about the way he treats people compared to animals, because that's one thing we do know from Will's analysis of Hannibal, is that he considers people to be like pigs. So he thinks of them as livestock, which sheep are.
Yeah.
So there's also this thought of, like, does he consider himself above both people and animals? They're on the same sort of level. I think probably yes.
Yes.
I think there might be maybe another little bit of nuance to it in that he might consider them the same, but he also recognizes that despite him considering people lower than him, they do have autonomy and they do have sentience. So in a way that would make them worse than animals because they can choose to do terrible things that offend him, which is why he feels the need to kill them.
That's
Whereas
exactly
animals
what
don't
I
do
feel.
that. So I think in a way animals are probably lesser than him but innocent.
Yes, that's exactly how I felt with him feeling about animals. It's more that like animals can be completely innocent, whereas humans can't, because of the
You haven't met my
sentience.
cats. You have not met my cats.
I think you're
intention.
no. You won't. You can't tell me otherwise.
When
I think
Poppy protests who's in the kitchen,
innocent.
she's acting with intention.
No, I think they're completely innocent. No lies.
Right.
No lies.
all cats are innocent, Your Honor.
All cats, Your Honor, innocent, Your Honor. All cats go to heaven, Your Honor. I hate when people are like, "Oh, dogs go to heaven, cats go to hell." It's like, shut up.
That's
Shut up.
such a stupid thing to say. Well,
yeah.
I'm not going to go into it, but that's another sort of thing you could also consider is the Christian concept of animals not having souls and Hannibal and his comparison to Christianity and blah blah blah. But I'm not going to go into that because that's going too deep a level into whether a Hannibal likes animals or not for this episode.
I think Hannibal likes animals. I think Hannibal likes animals because one, I think there's a certain amount of he likes nature, and there's a certain amount of loving nature means loving animals. I feel they go hand to hand. So I think he does. But begrudgingly he has to eat them. So he didn't bother to eat people.
Whereas I don't think that he likes animals. I think that he appreciates them on the same level he appreciates everything else that he considers beautiful, and nature is included in that. But I don't think he'd ever have the kind of empathy or desire to have like a pet, for example. I don't think he would ever feel inclined to have a pet.
Oh no! Why would he feel inclined to have a pet when he already has pets?
I mean,
he has Will. He has other people. Why did he need pets if he has pets and everyone already?
I would argue that Hannibal is the pet, but that's not a conversation for today.
Oh.
Moving on to our next talking point. So, in this episode, we get introduced to Margot Verger, piece by piece. She's very stoic and controlled, except for when we see her being pushed down by her unseen brother, who places her teardrop in a martini. Hannibal is very different with her than he is with Will. He's quite transparent in the way he talks, clearly encouraging Margot to murder her brother to escape his abuse. So what were your first thoughts on this new character?
I love her. I love her so much. She's so cool. She's so well dressed. She's also I think she comes off as how I would like to be. I would love to be as stoic or like as kind of deadpan as her. I'm just a happy-go-lucky person.
Bit of a badass attitude.
Yeah.
Sort of like, or just I think the way that she carries herself kind of gives the thing of like, oh, I know what my next move is. I know what my next 5 moves are. She's also a bit like, gives me the vibe of like very witty, like she knows her comebacks.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think she's cool. I am obviously a lot, for some reason in the show I'm often on the side of like the good people, but I feel like there's a lot to come from her. I don't know, and I'm intrigued. I'm drawn in.
Hell yeah.
Maybe because she's pretty.
Well, yes, she's pretty,
and I like me a pretty woman.
Same here.
Yeah, it's literally probably, it's like, oh, this is a very pretty person. I'm interested.
Yeah.
In all contexts, unfortunately, I'm a simple brain. I'm like, ooh, pretty.
That's fine. She's pretty. I think her personality kind of shines really well in the first time we see her. And I think it's really cool, and she's so intriguing. I'm like, and maybe because she is just pretty. And that's my brain going, unga bunga, pretty woman.
More cool Canadian actors as well, because she's Canadian.
Oh, heck yeah.
Nice.
If anyone has seen Ginger Snaps, the Canadian horror film, she's of course the titular character in Ginger Snaps.
I've not. Now I have to because I love horror. And
please, it's an amazing old Canadian indie horror. She's really young in it, and it's fantastic. The whole thing is
adorable.
It's a werewolf horror movie that's an allegory for periods.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
So good. Everyone should watch Ginger Snaps.
We shall watch Ginger Snaps now.
So good. She's amazing. Yeah, I love Margot. I like how strong her introduction comes across because her lines are quite simple and minimal, but she delivers them so well. Every little intonation of her voice just makes me happy to hear her speak.
That's exactly how I feel. Yeah.
She can take a single word and make you want to like echo it, especially if you're autistic, because it's the way she delivers them is so good.
That's right. Oh God, why do I have to be so bubbly and thinking, why can't I be like her?
I will say for all of the listeners that I have spoiled Margot's sexuality. The reason that I've spoiled Margot's sexuality is it gets mentioned in an episode, but it's so subtle that the vast majority of people I have watched the show with or spoken to didn't catch it at all. There were more clear lines in the script that weren't used. So it's kind of veiled when they explain that she's gay. So honestly, most people miss it. Obviously, we'll talk the shit out of it when it happens.
No heck yeah.
But we finally deserved a lesbian and we get a lesbian.
Finally do.
Yeah.
The trouble is, if anyone was going to notice it, Melissa and I would have been the ones.
Honestly, if you were just watching it and weren't analysing it with me, it would not surprise me if you miss it.
Okay,
I'm sure. I mean, we'll talk about it when the line happens, and then you'll know why people do miss it.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, the good thing about this episode is it's alluded to in this episode. Again, very heavily veiled, but you can, even with this episode alone, kind of see between the lines. There's discussion of her family doesn't accept her; they only accept her brother, and they think that she's weird.
Yeah.
And then there's the wonderful reflection of Hannibal saying that he's weirder than Margot will ever be, which is another little kind of we are both queer, you understand, kind of little subtle conversation happening, which I really like. Another little an NBC's way of saying these characters are not straight.
Yes.
Which I adore. I love that so much. So, for our next talking point, we'll talk about the actual murders. The murders themselves in this episode were pretty simplistic. Just an arsehole, Clark Ingram, who is a psychopathic serial killer exerting his gross control over women. He's probably the most two-dimensionally arsehole-ish killer we've had yet.
Bastard.
Yep. But their deaths are elevated through Peter Bernadone's attempts at trying to provide life after death.
Peter.
So, what were your thoughts on the world's worst turducken?
Oh my god. Fuck's sake. That's what you meant about the turducken.
God damn it.
That's the turducken. It's a woman inside a horse. Inside the woman is a bird. It's a turducken.
I had to just pause for a moment going, did we just, no.
I think the way that she fell out of the horse was fucking vile.
It's gross. It's really gross.
It just
That was
flips
gross.
onto the fucking, And then, so tell me about the bird. Why was the bird in the woman?
It's a weird symbolic thing. Peter is trying to it's, as Will says, it's a coffin death, and he's trying to give rebirth. Peter is a symbolic healer character, so he's trying to bring beauty to someone he doesn't think deserved to die. It's all a bit over the top symbolic, basically.
Yeah. I thought I thought what Peter did was pretty cool, if a bit, but yeah, the other guy, the very 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 basic ass killer, good guy, just he was boring. He's boring, but the thing is that boringness makes him intriguing because
it makes him kind of the most realistic, doesn't it?
Yeah, it makes him the most realistic. That's exactly why when I went away first saw him, it was like, I hate this guy. He's such an asshole. But then at the same time, it's like that's such good acting and such good show making that I can't very fault it at all.
Yeah, Clark Ingram is in a weird way probably the scariest killer to me.
Yeah,
because he's the most basic ass bitch killer, which makes him seem the most realistic representation of a serial killer.
Yeah.
He just kills
100%.
women.
Just
Yeah.
What's scarier than a white man?
Yeah, literally a cis-het white man, fucking terrifying.
Yeah.
Yep.
Could not agree more. So I'll say one little thing about the deaths, which is just me being a nerd. So when they're doing the autopsy, Jimmy says shark fetuses cannibalize each other in utero. So obviously I had to look that up. To be specific, it's sand sharks that do that, so it's not all sharks.
It's not all sharks, yeah.
So they usually start off with about 12 embryos, which is then whittled down via cannibalism to just 2, which are born after a roughly year-long gestation period. And I found out there were some studies where they tried to find out why they do it. And the main reason, it seems, because they tested the DNA of the embryos beforehand and then checked them afterwards. And what it is when there are multiple fathers, so when the shark is mated with multiple male sharks and they have different DNA, the cannibalization process whittles it down so that the 2 babies being born belong to the same father.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Why exactly? Dunno. But that seems to be the reasoning as to why the embryos do it.
Nature is strange.
Nature is strange.
Yeah.
It's cool, it's gross, and it's cool, and sharks are awesome.
Sharks are awesome. Don't hate sharks. Sharks don't kill.
Totally
Sharks
hate
don't
sharks.
kill people kill as many people as you think they do.
No, and as much as I love the movie Jaws, that movie did fucking awful things legitimately for sharks. The amount of sharks that were culled and killed after the popularity of Jaws is terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah, they will only, like most animals, they'll only kill or sort of attack if they feel threatened.
Yeah, they have to be provoked. Otherwise, they're just as chill as most fish.
Yeah.
And, well, they're not fish, but sea creatures.
Yeah.
Sharks
And
are awesome.
If you act like prey in the water, then you're because they have such poor eyesight and
they're just being big predators. That's just what they are.
Being big predators. Yeah.
I really want to do the cage diving thing.
Cage diving's very cool. I would. If I could swim and wasn't terrified of water, I'd love to see sharks.
Yeah, because me and Kath surf, so we will kind of want to get over a little bit of a fear of going into waters just because sharks are common. We kind of just want to be no, it's fine. We'll probably be safe. There's obviously, when you're in certain beaches and stuff, there's so many people. You're so safe. You're literally so safe. So we kind of, I think it'd be fun just to admire an animal anyway, but also just to feel maybe a little bit, maybe it'll help us feel a bit better about our fear of sharks, because it's not I hate the animal, but it's just a bit you're obviously scared that anything
it's your self-preservation kicking in.
It's that natural instinct. But it's like spiders. I absolutely love spiders. I adore spiders. My room is adorned with spiders. I have lots of spider memorabilia.
I'm never staying at your house.
But I am afraid of them. Instinctively, I am afraid of them.
Yeah, I'm the same as Shaira. Love spiders. One comes up to me, I shit myself.
Yeah, my brain shakes, but I still want to touch it.
The only one, I'm fine with tarantulas. I think they're very sweet and very cute, and I've held one before. But as anything else, absolutely no. Stay away from me. The only thing that I can look at of spiders is it Lucas the spider. Oh my god, I cry
We've spoken about jumping spiders before. Yeah, jumping spiders are special.
Jumping spiders are adorable.
Massive eyes.
Big babies with little petty paws.
So, following on from the previous question, this question is very short and simple because I think it only needs to be, which is, what did you think of Peter? He's effectively a healer archetype character, kind, sympathetic, loves animals. Will even says he considers himself a healer. What did you think of Peter?
I love
very
Peter.
Sweet baby.
Yeah. Sweet baby. Oh my god! I fell in love with him the first watch, and then the second watch again. Fell in love with him. He's so good, and I feel so. I feel so hurt for him and Will, because Will sees a reflection in him, and then Peter's in a similar position with someone who he trusts, has power, having power over him. And it just, that breaks my heart. It breaks my heart. Do not treat such a kind individual such a way, people. I think I'd be upset. I think I'd be much more upset with Hannibal if Will was close to similarity to Will to Peter, because I think that similarity draws a line very quickly, because Will is very Hannibal-esque, whereas Peter isn't, I don't think.
Yeah,
Don't worry, we've got a whole question about Will and Peter.
Oh, I think either we're all just becoming Will in the term in terms of, like, you know, wanting to pick up all the strays, or picking up the strays as a thing is not actually that fucking wild and everyone does it.
I
I'm
love
just saying.
picking up strays.
Yeah,
I
because
pick up stray friends all the time.
Yeah, because I think it's just the
You're my friends, aren't you?
I'm
No,
not straight, fuck you.
who are you? I think it's the natural thing of, like, you know, like, most of us as decent human beings just have a care and empathy towards, you know, anyone that may be struggling in any kind of way. So it's obviously very easy to empathize with someone that is clearly, you know, struggling with whatever it is. He just clearly felt uncomfortable, like, being interrogated by two people that he didn't know, and that is an object, like, out of context on its own, I think a lot of people would feel uncomfortable with.
Yeah.
I think he was just very sweet, and
Yeah.
you feel bad for him. We all want to go give him a hug and be his friend, and I think that is just the normal reaction to us as caring people.
Yeah. Also, I think he wanted them to lead. He wanted to lead them to him as well. So, like, yeah.
Yeah.
I do think they created literally the perfect character to make everyone watching just be like, oh no, protect him.
Yeah,
Protect that
absolutely.
man. That beautiful, soft, innocent man. I'm a big fan of the fact that he is visibly disabled, and he's vulnerable, but it never to me goes into patronizing.
No,
Yeah.
I think that's helped a lot by Will's behavior towards him.
Yeah.
Because Will doesn't patronize him; he speaks on his level and tries to
Yeah.
empathize with him. It's also one of the very few times that we see Will overtly empathize with someone who is not a killer. Because his reenactment is not Clark Ingram; it's Peter. And when he speaks to him, he's using his empathy as well, which we don't normally see that. So it's really nice to see how Will's empathy works in a slightly more normal way,
Yeah.
which is kind of nice.
Instead of being serial killers.
Yeah, I mean, it might be a way that Will can potentially use his empathy that's not detrimental towards him, which is really nice. So I've not seen the specific citation for this, but I know the people said Brian Fuller apparently confirmed that Peter is a stand-in for St. Francis, the patron saint of animals. You see all of, like, the cages in his, like, little barn area, and the reason they're in cages, because obviously, like, small cages aren't the best environment for animals, and it's because they're in rehabilitation, so he is specifically looking after them to heal them. Also, Will states that Peter has an atypical motor response, where his abilities to look and touch can only happen as separate events. We don't know 100% for sure what disability Peter has, but we know it's some kind of brain damage as a result of him getting kicked by a horse. So the likely equivalent is probably some kind of agnosia, which happens as a result of damage to the brain, and it affects your senses, including things like making it hard to tell if an object is moving, for example. So your senses work fine, but damage to the brain prevents it from recognizing input from the senses. There's loads of different kinds of agnosias that impact all of the senses, and they have all different kinds of symptoms, the majority of which are associated with cognitive conditions, but some also have ties with things like neurodivergence. So, for example, I have prosopagnosia, which is very hard to say, which is face blindness, where my sight doesn't work with faces properly. It works, I can see faces, but my brain signals get messed up and I can't recognize people. So agnosias are fun.
Yeah. Know a few people who have it.
It sucks. Don't recommend. Faceblind is just
No.
awful.
Thank you. I
wouldn't-
won't choose that
Yeah.
after your recommendation.
I forget about names very easily. I need people's faces.
Yeah, some people like can remember facts but not designate them to people and all sorts of stuff. I'm very lucky. My face blindness is quite mild, but it's when I meet new people, I have to tell them. They have to tell me where they are exactly and to come up to me and introduce themselves. Because if I haven't seen them loads of times, I will have no idea who they are. The person I used to live with, he used to have to do it every time he saw me because I could not remember his face. It was very socially awkward of having to be standing next to him and sending him a text message just being like, can you tell me where you are? Because I don't know. And him turning around just being like, hello.
Oh.
It's a pain in the ass condition to have.
Dear, pain in the ass. It sounds like a pain in the ass.
So, speaking about Will and Peter. So, Will sees himself in Peter's natural kindness driven to dark acts, only to find out that Peter has not changed the way that Will did and has retained his natural innocence. Whereas Will is driven by perhaps darker desires. As Hannibal says, doing bad things to bad people makes you feel good. And he's caught in an internal conflict. He also reveals through his conversations with Peter that he envies Peter's ability to feel hatred towards someone who is bad, which lets us know that despite everything, Will does not hate Hannibal. So what did you think of Will drawing parallels between himself and Peter?
I think in the way he's correct, but at the same time, he could never be Peter.
I think he's a different guy now.
Yeah, he's gone too far. Gone straight too far. I think, was he ever that kind of guy? Because, like, when he killed, I forgot, Gary Jacob Hobbs, he admitted himself that he felt good about that. So, was he ever that kind of guy? Was he ever a Peter? I don't think so. The parallels are there because and I think that's what helps him with his empathy as well towards it. Like, I think towards Peter, whereas I don't think his empathy would work towards someone like Peter unless there was parallels, because I feel like he's just too into empathizing with serial killers, and that's always been his personality. But yeah, I think I mentioned it earlier with the previous question. But yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe that's what he sees. Like, he thinks, I mean, if he sees similarities, like, it is understandable, but I think far too much has happened to him now, and I just think he's a whole new person. He has a whole nother demeanor about him. Everything I just see that I notice about him is just completely different, and I think maybe he still sees himself the same way and maybe doesn't necessarily think he is any different or as different as he actually is. But us being on the outside perspective, I think he's just way too different now. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I understand in what ways he's drawing like parallels to himself, but I also just think that he's so different that it's almost incomparable in a way. I just think he's got this whole nother demeanor. Excuse me. I think, yeah, I don't know. He just is a bit of a bad bitch now. He just walks with purpose. He's not like awkward. He just gets straight to the point. He actually doesn't give a fuck. He literally has big don't give a fuck dick energy. Do you know what I mean?
He's more reflective of Hannibal than he is Peter nowadays.
Yes, yeah, for sure.
And yeah, and also the reason why he doesn't hate Hannibal is because he loves Hannibal. So you know, you can't hate the person you love. Well, actually, you can probably hate the people you love, but you know that's more of a boomer thing to do than Gen Z, millennial / Gen Z.
As much of a shipper as I am, I would say at this stage in time, Will does not love Hannibal. But it's complicated.
It's complicated. Well, maybe he doesn't love him now. He's getting there.
Something's happening.
Yeah, something's happening.
Yeah, I mean, It is very complicated. I think there's kind of two elements to it. I think on the one hand, Will kind of sees himself in Peter because a little bit of him is reminiscent to what Will probably considers the old Will before things got bad. And I think in a way he probably subconsciously hopes for that. He wants to see himself in Peter because if he can empathize with him, maybe it means he's still a good person. He's like, well, Peter's a good person, so I must be a good person. But on the other hand, I think it's the first time he's seen someone with parallels to his own situation, where he mentions the shadow only you can see, and someone who made you feel less alone until they didn't anymore. And I think it's sad, but it is really nice for Will, even though Peter's not the same, even though Peter wouldn't do what Will would do. It is nice that Will does get to see that kind of parallel. I certainly wouldn't compare Clark Ingram and Hannibal.
No.
But you can understand why Will does.
Yeah.
Because to him, they're both still psychopaths, regardless. And they're both still cruel people, even if he doesn't really understand the difference yet.
Yeah.
I love that you both have different opinions on Will. That Shaira clearly believes that Will was never that good person and that this is part of who he has always been. Whereas to Melisa, he's undergone an evolution, has become a different person.
Yeah.
Because I think they are both completely valid opinions. I'm not going to tell you exactly which one is more accurate. You probably have some ideas to my opinions from things I've said in previous episodes. I want to repeat a line that Will said in the last episode, Yakimono, just because I think it's a really good line that Will says to Hannibal, because you don't know... He's very sarcastic about it, so you don't know if he's just saying it to be a bitch to Hannibal or if part of him believes it. Which is, you wanted me to embrace my nature, Doctor, just following the urges I kept down for so long, cultivating them as the inspirations they are. Because that's what Hannibal believes.
Yeah.
We just don't know what is necessarily true with Will.
Yes,
And I will say that that's kind of the point of this half of the series, is an exploration into who Will is. That won't become apparent immediately.
Yeah. I'm not necessarily saying Will was bad previously. I
don't necessarily mean bad, but
I think he just had it in him all that time. Yeah.
Which I do think is suggested by the killing Garrett Jacob Hobbs thing. But again, plenty of good people could also probably say that hurting bad people makes them feel good. So who knows?
Yeah.
It's complicated.
It is complicated.
So, on the flip side of that, what did you think of Hannibal's behaviour in this episode? He finally has Will free and back under his influence, but Will has demanded honesty from him, or at least an admittance of lies. And despite his previous manipulations drawing Will to become a potentially more dangerous person, he prevents Will from shooting Peter's social worker. I'd love to know your thoughts on why.
Kind of loved his gentleness in this whole episode. Like, it's weird. It felt such an opposite of him, but it felt...
It's much more like Hannibal in earlier season 1, only closer and more knowing.
Yeah, and it felt really cool. I liked it. I really enjoyed seeing this side of him in this episode. I think, again, he's treading in new waters. He's in a place where he just doesn't know how to react with Will specifically. He's continuously being surprised by Will, and it's just there's almost a hesitance to him. He's not as sure of himself as he was, or he can't be, because Will is such a wild card to him now. And I really just, apart from that, I just really loved his gentleness in this. It was really, really cool to kind of see a different side of him, and kind of like scary, but also hee giggly. I'm gonna just make snide jokes kind of thing.
I don't think he's gentle at all. I think he's cosplaying that part. I don't think he has the capacity to be gentle. I think he just mimics and copies behaviors that he sees in other people so that he can blend into real society and go undetected. I think that the only reason he stopped, or at least one of the reasons, maybe should I say, that he stopped Will from shooting the white dude is because I think that it would have potentially, considering that he wasn't necessarily there with FBI or anyone else, it could have potentially gone through of like a unlawful killing and he could have been in trouble again, and then that would have meant Will would have been away from Hannibal. And I think he's being a little bit careful to make sure that he doesn't get out of his hands this time. Also, I think it would have been a bit more suspect on Hannibal as well. I think there would have just been a lot of implications if Will did take that shot. I also think that Hannibal probably has some weird fucked up thing of like, oh no, if you're gonna, kill me, I want you to actually kill me rather than like pretending to kill someone else to try and get rid of that feeling of wanting to kill me. I want you to actually give all your feelings to me because I'm your wifey boy, Like, I think he's just selfish and just wants Will for himself. I think he's got his little play toy back and he wants to have some fun and have a little playtime. He doesn't want anyone to take his toy away again. I think that I'm struggling to see past any reasoning other than being selfish towards himself in this scenario. I don't think that he has any kind of kindness within him, and I think that is part of his charm, that he's trying to make people think and believe that he's being kind. He ain't.
I definitely think that you're correct. It's never entirely explained, so I would agree that I think the reason he stops Will ultimately is because otherwise Will's going to get himself arrested, and then he loses his plaything, like you say. So obviously Hannibal doesn't want to risk that. I'm kind of in between you both. So,
okay.
how do I explain?
It's fine. I'm enjoying it.
Nice. I don't believe that Hannibal is lying or wearing a mask during the barn scene, because he doesn't need to, because he knows that Will knows who he is.
Yeah.
And Will has told him not to lie. You're also entitled to completely disagree with me. And it's also entitled to say, well, just because Will has told him not to lie doesn't mean he's not going to lie.
Exactly.
However, he has no benefit in lying to Will at this moment, or at least not overtly. Let me say my bit.
Spun for a minute.
But that's it. I'm in between both of you. I agree with you that this is not necessarily kindness or tenderness, but I also believe that he's being honest. Everything that Hannibal does is ultimately self-serving.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that he's lying. I think that honesty for him right now is what will serve him best. Even if it potentially puts him in a more vulnerable position, it's only vulnerable to Will. He knows that Will thinks he's a killer. He knows that Will is telling people he's a killer. He's watched him do it to Jack Crawford multiple times in this episode. So there's no risk. He knows he's doing it. He's overtly telling people Hannibal's a serial killer. So what's the harm in him being like, okay, I'm just going to be myself? Being himself doesn't mean that he's going to admit anything. As Will said, he won't. He's not going to do that. That's not going to happen. But he can be himself, and himself is saying outright, look at this thing I've interfered with and how different he is from everything I've expected. And I think he's being outright affectionate. I think it's selfish, but I think that it's honest, personally.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see if you think he's being honest as we watch the rest of this series. Because again, you won't necessarily agree with me. That's my interpretation from this episode. So it'll be really interesting to see how it goes on, to see how you feel about them both, because it's gonna change and go back and forth a lot, and it's really interesting.
I'm looking forward to that.
This series. This half of the series is the most well loved for a reason out of all 3 series. So my final talking point, which is very important to me personally, because I wanted to fucking throw my fist in the air when we watched this episode together for the first time. I promised you that this show would get gayer. Did this episode prove me to be right?
Yeah.
Yes. It gave me gay, and I like it. But I need more, but I like it.
You can't say that was a heterosexual scene.
No, that wasn't a heterosexual scene. That was a totally gay scene.
It's so intimate, and I have to go back to my old season 1 point of notice how Hannibal uses touch to ground Will when he's in stressful situations.
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily romantic, but it's tactile and purposeful, and I love that.
Yeah.
Gay.
It's only gonna get gayer from here.
Heck yeah.
Woo!
Look forward to it. And it will culminate in bum sex.
Oh, I wish, but that's what fanfiction is for. So, should we go on to our endingy bits?
Yes, let's go.
Woo! Let's do favourite quotes, motherfuckers.
I got so much. Oh my god. It's me who starts with, right? Favorite quote. So, let me start with my honorable mentions. Honorable mentions. The first one is, well, the first 2 are both from Hannibal, and first one, an abnormal reaction to an abnormal situation is normal behavior. I liked that. I really liked that. That was a good quote, and I like it. Yes, you're right. An abnormal reaction to an abnormal situation is definitely not a normal behavior. Like everyone was, oh, you're acting weird, like to like traumatic events or something like that. It's like, yeah, literally, we just went through absolute garbage. Then secondly from Hannibal is, with all my knowledge and intrusion, I could never entirely predict you. I was like, that was such a good quote. Like he's admitting again that he can't predict Will, and I love that quote. And then my favorite quote is from Will himself, and it's just him acknowledging both Peter and himself's kind of like situation. Do you have a shadow, Peter? Someone only you can see? Someone you considered a friend? He made you feel less alone until you saw what he really is. Such a good quote.
Hell yeah.
And you could just see his pain because he clearly trusted Hannibal, and similar with Peter. Peter trusting his psychiatrist, and it's just like, oh, ouch, my heart.
Yeah.
But those are my favorite quotes. I had loads more. I've reduced it so much. On to you, Melissa.
My quote is when they are having the therapy session, and Hannibal is talking, and then Will just goes, "Stop right there," and says something like, "You may have to pretend, but I don't." So I was like, "Oh, guns blazing!" He's come in with his sassy new bad bitch attitude, and I'm here for it. It's like he's like post breakup. He was like in the little friendship with Hannibal. He was all happy, and then he went and fucked him over, and he's gone out to the clubs, which is the hospital, and he had his moments. He had his like wild times of drinking, and he got offered a little something, and he was like, "No, I shouldn't." And then maybe he tried it, and he was like, "Oh my god, I found myself now." And now he's come out, and he's like, "I'm a new bitch. I'm not fucking around anymore." Drop right there, babe. You ain't gonna talk over me. You ain't gonna lie. I ain't reading through your lies. Yeah. We're being real bitches only here, and that's exactly what he said with that line, and that's why I like it.
I like how you give characters entire arcs.
Thank you. Thank you.
That. I love that.
Yeah, that's exactly verbatim what happened. I was there.
Hell yeah. I unsurprisingly, I have a whole collection of quotes, and I've just been deleting the ones that you've been saying from my big list.
Get ready. We're about to have the whole script recited.
Yes, because I've decided I don't have a favourite quote. I'm just going to give you a whole load. I am going to say one of Shaira's favourite quotes, but I'm going to give the whole quote because the whole thing to me is special. Which is the entire ending line. So Shaira said, with all my knowledge and intrusion, I could never entirely predict you. The whole thing is I could feed the caterpillar and I can whisper through the chrysalis, but what hatches follows its own nature and is beyond me. Because it's so good.
So good, yeah.
And then honourable mentions to all of these other lines that I'm going to quickfire. One of them from the beginning, I don't know why, but it's one of my favourite lines in the whole show, is Will Graham saying, I'm a good fisherman, Jack. I love the Margot Verger conversation with, they think I'm weird. I'm much weirder than you will ever be, Margot. It's fine to be weird.
Yes.
Unsurprisingly, it's fine to be weird has become a good fannable phrase.
Yeah.
Because we can all relate to it's fine to be weird.
I am.
Then we have Hannibal asking, do you fantasize about killing me? Will says yes. Hannibal says, tell me, how would you do it? Will says, with my hands. There's absolutely no way that Hannibal wasn't rock solid after that answer. It's so sexually tense, that scene. And then, of course, we have the classic callback to episode 1 with Will saying, I don't want to kill you anymore, Dr. Lexa, not now that I finally find you interesting. Then we have when they're in the car together, Will says, no, I'm alone in that darkness. And Hannibal says, you're not alone, Will. I'm standing right beside you. And then finally, how dare neither of you say this line, but a classic that gets brought up by the actors at panels all the time, which is, Peter, is your social worker inside that horse?
I mean, it was a good quote.
Hannibal's fucking face afterwards is so funny.
It's so funny. I did have it written down. I just deleted it because I thought I didn't want to write say so too many. I wish you didn't.
You didn't want to do me and have the entire script. So on that note, favourite moments.
Woo, favourite moments. Okay, so I have 3 again because I only have 2. Sorry, I thought I had 3. I only had 2. No, I had 3. My honourable mention is just 1. So my honourable mention is just the starting scene with Will and Jack.
It's so funny. Like, it's really sweet.
It's sweet, but it's a hilarious scene. I enjoyed it. And then I just literally put in like caps every moment with Peter. So technically, it's not all 3 moments. It's like lots of moments. Every moment with Peter, because I love Peter. Peter's amazing.
Yeah,
and then also put in caps, sexy embrace. Sexy embrace. The last embrace that we had. The last scene with Hannibal and Will and the sexy embrace. Yes.
My favourite moment, I literally just put fishing moment, it's cute. And that's all I have to say. That's literally all I have to say.
I agree. It's so funny that's the starting scene, and the whole time they're basically talking about Hannibal being a serial killer in coded words, but it's so sweet.
So
it is still very sweet, yeah.
They're both just like relaxed with each other.
Yeah, because Will is sharing his hobby, and Jack is saying, Papa doesn't know how, son, please teach me. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, you're right that we never see Will sharing his own personal stuff with other people. So yeah, it was really good.
Really good scene.
Mine are just predictable and boring. The barn scene at the end, because it makes me want to cry. Everything about the tactile way that Mads Mikkelsen acts in that scene just destroys me. And also, all that shit is them, by the way. The way that they interact with one another physically, that's the actors, not the directors. And that's amazing. They bring so much to the characters, it's ridiculous.
That's cool.
Right? But also, shout out to Will and Hannibal's therapy session where Will talks about killing Hannibal. Because, again, I think that Hannibal probably had the most painful erection of his life. So,
yeah, he did.
Next episode predictions.
Oh, right. I couldn't actually think of anything for the predictions. My brain just went blank after.
We get that every episode. It's okay to not have a clue.
Yeah. Right now, I don't have a clue. I don't have a clue. The things I want to happen,
which is also something you're allowed to say.
Like I want Abigail to be alive, and I want other things to happen, but I don't know what's going to come next. Maybe Abigail's going to come. Maybe Abigail's going to be revealed to be alive in the next episode, but I can't say that for sure. That's not my prediction right now.
You can say things that are nonsensical or just things you want to happen. That's fine.
Yeah,
It doesn't have to be like an
yeah.
analytical prediction.
Yeah. I just gonna do something funny. The psychiatrist crawls back into into the horse, and both Hannibal and Will have an intimate session of stitching him back in there. There you go. That's my prediction.
Intimate horse stitching.
Intimate horse stitching. Exactly.
Hashtag intimate horse stitching.
Hashtag amazing.
I don't even know what to predict at this point. I feel like I'm getting more lost in terms of things to predict. I think because we have new ideas keep coming to us, now we have a whole new fucking character.
Yeah.
I think it's really hard to kind of predict anything other than gay sex, obviously. And I think it's very heavily fucking implied now.
Heavier
I'm gonna say. I ain't just gripsing my best friend like that. Well, actually, I probably would grips my friend's neck like that. I am very loving to my friends.
But Hannibal, probably not.
No, not really. I'm scared you'll probably twist it off. So I probably wouldn't go there with him.
That's valid.
Yeah, gay sex, and I think this new, is it Margot Polo is gonna show how much of a bad bitch she is. I don't know what's gonna happen, but I think she's just gonna, something's gonna happen, or something she's just gonna present to us, and we're all gonna be fucking gagged.
That's a good prediction.
Yeah,
thank you.
I like that.
My prediction. I forgot that I wrote this. My prediction is Hannibal suggests to Will that they could work out some of his violent tendencies by handing him a riding crop. I think that's just Felix writing what he wishes happened.
Yeah.
Are you ready for my sign off?
Yeah.
I'm never ready for your sign off. It always it always makes me go, what?
That's what I like to hear. So, my sign off is, that was really tense. Hope the next one is more chill. Is that a furry? Fate and Circumstance is an independent podcast brought to you by Felix Fanfaron Fern, Melisa Suzan, and Shaira Bambi. You can find and follow us on Twitter and Tumblr at HannibalPod. We are fans of the show NBC's Hannibal and do not own the rights to any of the materials discussed, merely appreciators. The music used in this podcast is Tchaikovsky's Op No. 40 Waltz by Kevin MacLeod, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 4.0 license. Thanks for listening.